Welcome to Tammy Jo's Cross Stitch. I'm so glad you're here. There are many different kinds of cross stitch fabrics. There's even paper and plastic. These are good options for beginners. They come in big sheets and you can cut them to size. You can make bookmarks, ornaments. There's also perforated paper, which works really well for Christmas ornaments. This is one of my Jessie tree ornaments I did on perforated paper, and you can simply paste felt or cardstock on the back. I might add some gold rickrack around the edges, but it's a very good option for beginners and for kids. Now your fabrics come in different counts. There are suggestions on your patterns about how many threads to use. And as you can see, this is the smallest thread count. This means that there are 11 squares per inch. This is using one strand of floss, 2 strands and 3 strands, and the 11 is actually 4 strands. So what you need to understand is, while your pattern might suggest how many threads to use, it's really kind of personal preference of whether you want to see the cross or you want a solid color. This is probably the more common count. This is 14 count. You can see 4, 3 strands, 2 strands, and 1 strand. This is your 18 count. You can see as the numbers get bigger, the squares get smaller, so your design gets smaller. And this is 22 count, and it really was difficult even using 2 strands. I tried to use 3 for just the number and the 22 up here. Another thing to understand about your fabric is sometimes on bigger projects you're going to want to do something with the edge. On a small project like this, it's not really necessary. Even bigger ones, you really don't see much fraying at all. You can see the manufacturer sewed a small line of really tight stitches along this edge, and it kept the fabric from fraying anymore. But it did fray down here where I didn't do anything to the edge, but it wasn't enough to bother me. If it bothers you and you don't want those threads coming out, there are a few things you can do. One thing is using pinking shears. That stops your fraying a little bit. The disadvantage here is your thread is going to get caught on those ridges a lot more than it would a smooth edge. Another thing you can use is tape. You can use masking tape or first aid tape. I like the fabric first aid tape. It's my preference. And it leaves a smooth enough edge that it's not going to catch your thread. However, when you take that tape off, it is going to cause probably as much fraying as you're trying to prevent. So it might be a good idea to add a little bit of room so you can simply cut the tape off. Another thing to look out for is some masking tape will leave a residue, and then you're going to have to cut that off or be careful with your framing so it doesn't show. These were some of my bigger projects, and as you can see, they didn't really fray much. They did a little, but not enough that it's going to keep me from sticking this in the frame. All right, another question. Oh, and you can also use glue. There's all kinds of fabric glues. Those work well, but just like the pinking, they tend to catch on the edge. So your question is, do I need to do anything with the edges, or you're probably just going to have to play with it and decide which type you prefer. You can also hand sew the edges with a whipping stitch or with your sewing machine, just a real tight edge, kind of like the manufacturers do. All right, another thing to notice about your cloth is they come in different stiffnesses. This type of fabric is very stiff, whereas these others are not stiff at all. You could probably add starch if you wanted to, but a lot of the newer cloths are coming pretty stiff, and when they are, you don't really have to use a hoop. Now, if you're a beginner, I recommend you use a hoop until you can get very consistent with the tension on your crosses. You don't want to pull so tight that you start bunching up the fabric, because that's going to ruin your project. When you don't use a hoop, you need to start using all your fingers. Let me show you this here. So when I'm not using a hoop, I put all my fingers to work. I'll be using these two fingers to pull the top and these two to the bottom. And as my thread goes through, my ring finger here will be feeling to make sure everything goes through smoothly and I don't have a knot developing. And that is fabrics. I hope you understand.